Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
I'd like to wish a happy Father's Day to the fathers who are with us here at Groveport United Methodist Church, both in person and online. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different, but I think pretty cool. And that is we are going to have several of the ladies of our church share about the fathers in their lives. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy as we talk about fatherhood.
Happy Father's Day!
So let's hear from Jeannie, who's going to share about her husband, Gary, and the challenges and opportunities that come from fathering a blended family.
Well, when we first got married, he was a parts manager at a dealership, and then later on he became a body shop manager at dealerships. And I remember he would win trips, and we would go on trips, and we were so excited to go, and we would leave the kids, and they were just little. We'd leave them with somebody, usually his brother Glenn, actually, and we'd be so excited to come back and see him. And then as soon as we got back to the airport and they were there and they were already at each other, he's like, we got to go back. But we missed him horribly when we were gone, but he's a great dad. He is. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. And he had to put up with me too, so there you go. Well, I actually remember our wedding day was just such an amazing day, because here we were. I had my 2 kids, he had his 2 kids, and you would have never known that they all weren't his kids or weren't all my kids. So that's my first memory of him as a father to all 4 of them. So it was a great day. He was just took him right in, and he was the dad he didn't have to be. You know, I remember us going camping with the kids. I remember him just always being so patient, and I'm like running around like a chicken with my head cut off, telling him to do this, do this, do this, and he was always just like lopping along like, we'll get it done. So he's just always been very patient. Probably even, when they went in, before they went into adulthood. I remember, Chuck, was, I think, his pride and joy, because he was like his mini me, and they had such a close relationship, and spent a lot of time together. And then we had Amy, who was my daughter, who I think he had a special place for her, because she was just always kind, and she was always sweet and didn't give us any trouble. And he was really special to her, and I know that she fell in love with him at a very, very early age when we first got married. And to this day, she still, feels that way about him, and he feels that way about her. And then the other 2, Gary's daughter Heather, she was our little wild child, and we had to be real patient with her, but he always was. He always, no matter what was going on, he worked through it, and now she's like his little mommy. She calls and checks on him, and he sits and talks to her all day about whatever she wants to talk about. He's just Mr. Patient and wants to know what's going on in their lives. And then we had Derek, who was the baby, and he was another wild child. But you would have never known that he wasn't Gary's kid, because he just took him under his wing and, tried to coach him and counsel him. And even still to this day, I hear him on the phone talking about things, and he, one thing about him is he doesn't try to fix everything like I do. What he does is he listens. And sometimes that's all they need, is just for you to listen to them. And he's really good at listening. He really is. He's really good at just listening to their little hearts and their little voices, and just helping them however he can. So, he's a great dad. He always was a great dad to all of them. And I think the biggest testament to him, as far as a stepfather, was when Amy and Derek's father was sick and passing away. He took Gary's hand and said, "Thank you for being such a great father to my kids." And I think that's just about the best testament you can have. We had great times with the kids growing up, and he was a wonderful father. He was a wonderful father, and he was raised by some really good people. So, and you know, I think that was one thing that made him a good father.
Let's hear now from Kelly, who's going to tell us a little bit about her father, Wayne, who I'm sure a number of you are familiar with. And she's going to talk about how his love and care has helped to make her the person she is today.
So I'll start with our common interests because that's probably a lot more. Cleveland, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, anything to do with sports. So my first Ohio State game when I was in middle school, my first Browns game when I was in college. Couldn't tell you my first Cleveland baseball game. We used to go to the track, Columbus Motor Speedway, watch racing. It was too loud for my sister, and my brother was too little, so it was Dad and I. One of my memories that I have that maybe I don't think it's fun, but it's, you know, I still tease him about was when he took my brother to Mid-Ohio instead of me, but I wanted to go. But that's okay. One of the other things we have in common is annoying my mom. We call her a reverse bobblehead when we are together because she is always shaking her head side to side. It's because our humor is so great, right? But I'm going to say my favorite memory comes back to when I came back to the church after college. So moved home, moved out, and was still coming to church as part of the choir. And I would drive over, pick up Dad, and get breakfast every morning, Sunday morning. A lot of times it was drive-by breakfast because I was running late. There's a lot of hair here to do. So then we would come and we'd go to choir practice, and that would be it. So if that's, you know, one memory, and it would be breakfast on Sunday mornings. Years ago, we did a family music night before Christmas, and Dad and I played the piano together. He played the student's part, and I played the teacher's part, and as you can tell with our sense of humor, he walked out with his faux tuxedo jacket on to play for his recital. So I will say a fun memory from after I graduated high school is one of my graduation presents from my dad was a fishing trip up on Lake Erie. So went up to Lake Erie, camped, and then went walleye fishing and for the day. Just him, and it was supposed to be two of his coworkers and their graduates, but ended up being just my cousin as well. So we had fun fishing. We since did that when I was an adult. After college, went back, just the two of us, went camping, went fishing, perch fishing this time, and brought back the fish. We have lots of camping memories. We camped as children. One memory we had just today is from when we went camping up at Dogwood Valley, which a few of the former members here used to come with us. And we went back to the same site the next year and found our dog's leash that we had lost the year before. Looking forward to making that same memory with our kids when we go to the same campground later this year. So then a memory that I think my boys and Wayne will have throughout their lives is when they always ask him, "Where's Grandma?" So they will be picking them up, or Dad will walk in the house first, and it's never, "Hi Grandpa, how are you?" or it's, "Where's Grandma?" The reverse of that is last week, Grandpa was supposed to pick up on one of the days of school, and my meeting was canceled from working from home, so I said, "I'll pick him up, don't worry about it." Lo and behold, Ryan said, "I thought Grandpa was picking us up." And Grandpa could not believe it that one of them actually said that. But they both love to go fishing with him. They go down on the boat. They like to play with him, and he really, teaches them the same things that he taught me as a kid.
Happy Father's Day!
Sheila is going to share with us a little bit about her father, who has been gone for a number of years, yet his legacy of love and compassion is still bright and burning in the lives of his family.
He was a quiet man till you got to know him. My sister and I would sit together in church, whispering and giggling. He would reach around the back of us and flip us on the back of the head with his big hands. And boy, did that hurt. We thought our heads were going to roll off. And we would giggle and carry on. This went on every Sunday. I liked his big meal when we got home from church. Mom would always have it on the stove and ready to go as soon as we got home. Then he would take a nap in his chair. The rest of the afternoon was spent for a Sunday drive. He liked a family time. He always wanted to see all the other farmers doing. Had they plowed their fields or planted them yet before him? And now, heaven forbid, he'd get behind. He always kept going. And now he rests up in heaven with Mom, looking down on us. I talk to him every day and count my blessings that he was my dad. And then I remember the time when I was very small, but we all play outside the church and Mom and Dad talk. And all of a sudden they weren't there. They were gone. They had left me at the church. And so Daddy's like, the kids are like, Dad, Sheila's not here. We all sit in the back seat. And he thought it was funny. And they're like, no. Finally they convinced him, she is really not here in the car. He's like, oh. So they had to turn around and come back and get me. Even though I had friends that said they would bring me home. But yeah, he thought that was funny. So he has to claim his fourth child and keep her. For a while, we had cows and pigs and sheep. Until I was very little when we had sheep. And I went to pet a little lamb and bent over, and the mother lamb thought I was hurting her baby. So she comes running at me and butts me. Up in the air I went. Daddy thought that was so funny. And then we did have a cow called Snowball that we would help Dad, milk every day. And he'd like to squirt us in the face with the milk. Yeah, so that was pretty funny. And then I remember when Mom was helping him load up hogs. And you have to get him in the chute and go up onto the truck. And one of those hogs, man, they could be very mean. Just came at her and knocked her butt down in the manure. She was a mess and she was so mad and Daddy couldn't stop laughing. She smelled, so she couldn't go in the house. That was pretty funny.
Let's hear now from Nancy as she shares a little bit about her father.
My dad taught me how to drive a stick shift pickup truck. And he sure did have a lot of patience because I killed the motor many times. He had a lot of patience. I was only 15 and I remember we would go down a country road and the road was so narrow it didn't have lines on it, and if you should meet somebody you almost had to get into the ditch to pass. But we would just go along on the road, and we went to Cairo, Kentucky, and went to a fruit stand, and he would buy a peck of apples, and then we'd go home, and we did this for months and months. And I was learning to drive, and we just had some special times, and he would tell jokes and we'd tell funny stories and we'd sing and laugh, and it was just special time.
Carrie is going to share with us now about her dad, who passed away just a few months ago.
My dad was a builder. When he was right out of school, he worked with his dad. They formed a construction company, Schroff and Schroff. Then they went into what was called Green and Sawyer, which was a construction company. They worked for them. And then in his Dad went to work for a place in Lima, Ohio, Eagle Lumber, and he was the manager of the truss, the roof truss department. And from there, he went on for the next many years. He was the head of the truss department there and a couple other places. And that's where he retired from. But he was a real jokester, just loved to tell a story. He was a great storyteller, and he just loved to tell a story. And I have a lot of them written down because I know someday we're going to want to remember those, and I won't remember them. But we wrote a lot down, and we also videotaped he and Grandpa together with a lot of their stories. So that's a great memory we'll have of them. So, well, I don't have one favorite memory. There's too many to mention. He was the life of the party, bigger than life. But I guess one of my best memories of him is just his daily phone calls. He called me every day, and he would always say, "Tare, Dad here, just calling to check in." That's what he always said. And then he'd say, "Well, here, I'll let you talk to your mom." Because he never really had much to say, but he called me every day to check in. And I do miss those calls. I miss those calls, those daily calls. So you mentioned his building. I will say Dad built every home we ever lived in growing up. So he built, I was 3 years old when he built our first home. And up until then, Mom and Dad rented. But after that, every home we lived in, he built. And then when they moved to Marysville later in life, he built the home there. And then my mom still lives in the home he built over 20 years ago for their retirement home. After he retired, he started putzing around in his workshop, mostly to keep him out of Mom's hair. And one of the first things he built was a rocking horse. He decided that they were a little bit too tedious and too much work, but he ended up building 34 rocking horses. The first one was for Heidi, my daughter. So it's about 42 years old now, the rocking horse, and she still has that. So all of the grandkids and all of the great grandkids have rocking horses, and the nieces and nephews and friends and you name it. He built rocking horses for all of them. And then he got into building the trunks and assorted sizes. I have a large one, which was like a cedar chest he lined for me. He built small trunks that I have one for tea. I keep my tea and my recipes in. I finally had to say, "Dad, enough with the trunks. I have enough." We had more of those in our homes than we knew what to do with. And he also carved on those trunks, so he would carve names. There is one that sits here in the church that he made for us, and it has the flame and the cross, the Methodist symbol. Dad loved life. He loved his family, and he was proud of us all. We miss him so bad, but it's so strange. When I ever thought of Dad dying, he was 85. I always thought, I don't know that I'll ever get over that. I don't know how I'll ever get through that. But we have such great memories of him. And we know how proud he was of all of us and how he, thought of us and stuff. And I think that helps us just get through the days, day by day. Thinking about him, sure, we have moments, but most of us, my mom especially, is doing remarkably well. And I think that's because of the legacy and the memories he left us. So, I'll really miss him this Father's Day. So.
Now we're going to hear from Camilla and Margarita as they tell us a little bit about their dad, Andrew.
The influence he has on me is greatly because most people say, especially my mom says, I look nothing like her, just like my dad. So I look up to him a lot, So I love how he pushes us to be hard, to be a better person and stuff. I won't say it's funny. I would say it's something that needs to be addressed. It was my 6th grade concert for a choir, and I took me there, and he took a phone call, and on stage I could hear him, "Hey, what's up, my man?" on it. So that's one funny moment per se. He carries himself in a respectful manner. From his roots and stuff, where he came from, he's humble enough to where he came from and grateful for everything, how he came over here to America. So himself with great dignity. And as him coming from a man of humble beginnings, I love that he does that. That's what makes me want to become, more and more like him, because he always says, don't be like the crowd, be a leader, not a follower. So there's many times the devil had tried him, so he could have fell off, but no, he continued strong. Margarita said it, he's basically perfect. you know, that's what really makes him special. He's basically perfect, you know, in every way. He's a great father, great person to look up to, and yeah.
Serious, clean, close to perfect, because nobody's perfect. Unique.
Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Can you say Happy Father's Day?